are learning cloud now, and then you eventually might end up as a solution architect. If you have a lot of experience, you might become a solutions architect, or if might you might be interested in becoming a DevOps engineer or a SRE engineer in the future, right? So, if your plan is to become a DevOps engineer or a SRE engineer, then you have to be clear on certain tool sets. Like, let me show you this. There are many different tools that helps you with infrastructure as a code and automation. So automation and infrastructure as a code, they both are very important when it comes to DevOps philosophy or DevOps practice. These two are very essential. So you have to be thorough with how the infrastructure as a code works. And in order for learning infrastructure as a code, you need to have some basic understanding of the infrastructure as a code language. So here you don't have to really have a programming skill. Rather, you can have some idea around, let's say, templating and scripting. So when I say scripting and templating, there are many different scripting languages and there are many different templating languages. So when you want to write a template for your infrastructure or for deploying your application, these days, there is a lot of focus on JSON and YAML. Okay, and YAML is more simple and straightforward, whereas JSON is also heavily used when it comes to templating languages. But when it comes to scripting language, there are many different scripting options, but Python is very common because of its simplicity and it is easy to repeat and reproduce the environment. It is easy to create as well. And if in case you are good in Windows or Linux, then you go for PowerShell scripting or Bash scripting or shell scripting, and you utilize that for specific operating system. So in order to automate, either you need to have, not either, you need to know scripting and the templating. So scripting will help you to reduce the repetitive tasks, and you can copy the environment using those templates and reproduce that environment. So that way, any rapid changes or any improvements you want to bring in, these tools helps you to make the environment much quickly deployed and configured. So automation and infrastructure as a code, both are core DevOps philosophy. Okay, so when it comes to DevOps practice and philosophy, automation and infrastructure as a code are two major elements. Okay, or they are two cornerstones, I would say. And besides that, if you talk about DevOps, there are other elements like you might have to understand about continuous integration, continuous deployment, continuous security, and then you need to learn about what are the different deployment strategies that are available. And we have also got this infrastructure as a code, or IAC. Some people call it as IAC, but that's fine. Infrastructure as a code or infrastructure as code is fine. And then we also have this monitoring and observability. That is also one of the key practice within your DevOps or SRE framework. And you have this security and then optimization, those stuffs. So if you are a DevOps engineer, you might work on the DevOps tooling, like it can be your Jenkins or GitHub, or many different tools are there. And in order to deploy the application, there are many different deployment strategies that are there, and you might get to learn that when you get into that particular topic. But here we are going to focus on the infrastructure as code and the automation methods that are available and the tools that are available within AWS. And primarily, AWS provides AWS CloudFormation, which is one of the very popular tool when you want to deploy the infrastructure using infrastructure as a code. And you can also use AWS Cloud Development Kit if you are good in development. If you are a developer, then you can go for Cloud Development Kit. That is the equivalent for your Cloud Formation, but you can use any of your programming languages. If you know Java, or if you know Python, or Ruby, you can just go and write the infrastructure as a code in your own favorite language, and you can also deploy it. If you're a developer, you can go and use this cloud development kit. For this, you need to have the programming or the development knowledge. But for using AWS CloudFormation, it is just template as a code or infrastructure as a code. You need to know the templating, either JSON or YAML. Both are pretty much similar. Only thing is like the annotations, the methods that we structure the document will be slightly different, but at the end, both the document are just key value pairs. So you are going to provide the information in a key value structure. So ideally, DevOps is focusing on reducing the manual process. So they call it as toil, right? So toil is something, whatever the repetitive task that you do, right, in your environment. Like if you're manually creating something, or if you're manually modifying something, or if you're continuously doing the same monotonous work. So that monotonous work is called toil. And that monotonous work can be reduced using automation philosophy or automation practice. So reducing toil, automation can be used, or infrastructure as a code can be used. These two are interlinked practice, or they two are having very good link between each other. Okay, so environment over the period, if you're doing manual task, you know the challenge, right? Sometimes you might create something with wrong configuration, or different servers might end up with non-standard environment. So there are many different challenges like that. So non-standard, and then you might humans are error. I mean, when things are created manually, it is prone to errors. So definitely errors might be there, and then configuration defects will be there, and then there will be some deviations between one server and another server when you are going and creating it manually. So if you want to avoid these things, either you have to take a infrastructure as a code strategy, where you can just go and create the template, and using that template, if you are creating multiple servers, all the servers will have the same exact configuration. So you will have the standardized environment, and you will have much better the code could be reused. It is repeatable, and you can reuse the code, right? Reuse the template for creating more and more environment. If you have one environment in one location, and if you want to create the exact same, you can take a template of that, and then you can go and reproduce it or recreate it in another location. So automation is very, very critical to realize the full benefit of the cloud environment. And DevOps as a practice, SRE as a framework, they both focus on avoiding the manual process, which is error prone, which is unreliable in a way, because like we cannot rely upon consistency, or it is inadequate to support an agile business. Okay, if your organization have to be agile, then they have to adopt the infrastructure as a code and automation. So there are many different tools that AWS provides. We will talk about the AWS code pipeline, the code the Cloud Guru, the Cloud Shell, Cloud9. There are many different products that AWS provides as a product and service, but CloudFormation and CDK are coming under the category of infrastructure as a code category, where you can go and create the template, and then using the template, you will be able to um, easily standardize and have a consistent environment. So consistency is the key. So that is what we are trying to achieve. So if you have consistency in your environment, if there is some issue on one server, you can easily fix the same kind of errors or problems in the other identical environments. So it is going to completely eliminate the manual intervention. So as much as possible, the OS patching, troubleshooting, bug fixing, the configurations on your machine, any software releases. So all these stuff could be completely end-to-end automated using the CloudFormation as a tool. So before we get into the details of CloudFormation, so I will give you a little more background around the templating language, or the templates. Okay, so DevOps to practices. Okay, there are many different practices. As I said, continuous integration is there, continuous deployment, continuous delivery is there, okay, and then continuous security is there. So there are many different practices within DevOps, but what we are focusing is on these two practices. Automation is one practice, infrastructure as a code is another practice within your DevOps practices list. So coming to the templates, so there are multiple different templating languages that are available. So there is JSON, there is YAML. Okay, and these two, out of these two languages, okay, so JSON is in a way used in many different environments since a very long time. But when it comes to YAML, they are getting popular because like they don't have a lot of restrictions like the JSON has got. So JSON is even though it is used in many different languages, I mean, even though it is used in many different environment, it is completely language independent. So both of these languages, they have something common, right? The common stuffs, I will just put it above the differentiation so that way you can understand it easily. So for these, any tool to become very popular, it has to be easily readable by the human, right? So it's a human readable language. So it doesn't need machine to interpret, or there is no interpretation that is needed. You can just directly go and read the YAML code or the JSON code. Anyone can understand what we are trying to achieve. But whereas the codings like Java or let's say Python, you might need to learn that particular programming language first, and then only you can understand the code, what it has been written. But JSON and YAML, these are all user friendly, and they are human readable data representation language, I can say, from language aspect, from the way that we represent the data. It is easily human readable, and both of them are very lightweight in nature. It doesn't have a lot of content. It is very straightforward, and it is designed to make the format easy to read, and then even the complex deployment, complex features can be made. Okay, so I would say YAML has become a superset of JSON in a way that it supports a lot of data format. So when you talk about the data representation or data format, so YAML supports many different format. It accepts numbers, it accepts strings, it accepts the even you can have null values without any data. Also you can create certain data types, and it accepts the boolean, right? True or false, yes or no conditions, dates, timestamps. So I can keep listing. Okay, so this YAML, it understands all these different values, and you can also understand if you are providing some nested values also here. But when it comes to JSON, there are some limitation. It understands numbers and strings, but then the remaining there is a lot of limitation there. And also it accepts like a object oriented language, your Java and C++ and all, like C++ or Java object oriented languages, right? So this can also read the content, the data as an object. And if you want to provide multiple set of information within multiple values within a particular table or multiple array, you can put it in an array, whereas here the nested value is also supported. So JSON has got Java script automation language, right? So JSON stands for JavaScript object notation. This one is yet another markup language. Okay, so or some people call it as Ain't, another markup language. So both are fine. So here, this is a kind of language where, or like template, where you have certain limitations in terms of the data type that is allowed. And currently, if you are writing JSON, it will have that flower brackets and all those things. I will just give you some examples. Okay, so when I say array, um, so in JSON, we write the array like this. Okay, so you go and add the flower bracket, and then here within that you go and just put first, and then you can just say second, and then you keep adding like this. Okay, and it forms it has limitations, like it has to have the strings within the double quote. If you have multiple words, you have to definitely have the double quotes, but you can mix and match numbers and strings and so on. And at the end, you will have the flower bracket which has to get closed. So if you're opening something, you have to close it, and it has to follow these methods. But when it comes to YAML, okay, you don't have to follow that method. Okay, you can just say you can leave double space. So double space are called indentations in templating language. So if you, I mean, if you are writing something, if you are putting something within that array, so you have to leave 2 spaces. And if you are adding something within that, you can leave 4 spaces. So it has to be double spaces for the indentations. So here I can just say first, and then second, and then third, and so on. So it will directly accept the content. You don't have to use double quotes, or you don't have to use flower brackets. So those kind of complications are not there in YAML. Okay, so YAML is very, very straightforward, whereas JSON, you need to follow the structure and the mapping and all those things. So you can have a kind of very decent format in YAML. So YAML allows commenting. So if you want to add some description, or if you want to add some specific details, wherever you want to add it, you can just go and add a hash value. And then if you add a hash in that line will be commented, and you can type whatever you want in between. Whereas previously, like JSON used to have some support for that, but in the current version, like they have some limitations around the commenting and using that descriptions and all those things. So in JSON, there are options to do nesting and stuff, but YAML natively supports those nesting, and if you want to allow some words and stuff, you can just do it. So in YAML, if you want to really add double quotes, or if you want to represent some string, it is optional. You can see, if you can very well add the content here. If you want to just put double quotes and represent the string, it will accept. It is not mandatory here. That's the difference. Okay, so here it has to be mandatory. So the strings, just a second. Yeah, the strings has to be in double quote, and here it is optional. It can be in double quotes, or it can be represented. So don't worry, I know, like it seems like uh, a programming class, but don't worry, like it's very, very easy. So comments are not allowed, or there are limitations here. So comments are denoted with hash values, and you can also use uh, number values here, and numbers, like if you're adding number 1, number 2, number 3, and that can also considered as a comment, and you can add multiple lines also there. So here the hierarchy is denoted using the braces and brackets. So as I showed you here, you have to use this flower bracket and braces to differentiate the objects. And if you want to have the arrays listed, so it uses objects and arrays, uses braces, brackets, and so on. So brackets is just normal bracket, whereas you can also use the flower braces and so on. So yeah, so the file format is .json here. Okay, so it will be .json or .json, whereas here it is .yml, or you can also have .yaml as a file extension for this. Okay, and you can have some floating values, or you can have some infinity values. You can also have integers, octal values, hexadecimal values. So YAML has more support for entering the different values here. So at a high level, both are templating languages. Both are used for writing templates. Both are templating language, and both of them are open standard languages. So there is no one to claim that this is their standard. So it is open standard. You can just use the format for any requirement. And also both can read the data as data object, like your object oriented programming language. So whatever you write as a data, that can be stored and read as a object. And more important thing is, these templating languages has support for almost all the operating systems that are there, like Windows, Linux, Mac, and Unix. So it has support for all of them. And finally, very important thing is, both of them, the data that we write within that comes under the key value pair combination. So OS support just wider, and then you have this key value pairs, and you can read it human language. So templating languages will be in anything that is there in the market. If it has to become very popular, it has to be user friendly. It has to be open standard. It has to be human readable. So all those qualities and benefits are there applicable for both JSON and YAML. So JavaScript object notation is used very widely, and these days and last 4 5 years I could see that YAML is also getting very very popular. So both of them are used for creating infrastructure as a code language template, and the structure of the code is very very straightforward. Both YAML and JSON allows the same structure. So when you want to write a template, so the template will have a specific structure. Okay, so and then we'll go into the cloud formation shortly. So when I say structure, see, if you are an engineer or architect, if you want to write a document, so you have to have a document for your so you have to have a structure for your document, whether it is a high level design or low level design or architectural design specification document. First, the document has to have some standard, right? That is where the TOGAF and those things comes into place, right? The TOGAF is mainly for architectural best practices and principles. So they provide you the standards on how to write your high level design, low level design, and so on. So similarly, if you're writing the JSON document or YAML document, it has to follow a particular schema, right? And that schema, generally, like let's take a document as an example. So it will have version to start with. So if you don't have a version number like 0.1, 0.2, or something like that, so you don't know which is the latest version of the document or which is the latest template to use. So you will have multiple different files and you will get confused which one to use or who has modified. So you can go and check the changes or modified date and all, but still, like there are chances that someone has made a good amount of modification last month, and someone has recently changed it, and that doesn't have all those important modifications. So in order to track the changes, in order to have a proper document version, so version control is very very important. So version control, and then document the changes, who made the changes, who with which author made the changes, and what they have made. So you can capture some high level information, what is the enhancement or new field that has been added. So template version is very very important. So that is number one. And number two, you can also add a description to your template, so that clearly tells what exactly the document is all about, right? So the purpose of the document, it is a text field. Okay, you can go and add whatever content you want. Okay, we will continue where we left yesterday. See, when it comes to DevOps practices or DevOps principle, we have to be very good in few activities or few practices that is part of the DevOps framework. Couple of them are automation and infrastructure as a code. And besides this, there are other things like continuous integration, continuous delivery, and then what are the different deployment strategy that we can take. And on top of that, there are some specialized tooling which we are using for code repository, and then which we are using for observability, and then communication and collaboration like Slack, Teams. And there are a lot of different tools that are available to scan your code or scan your infrastructure as a code template before even we deploy that into the customer environment. So these two philosophy or these two practice of DevOps are very, very essential to be a good DevOps engineer, and even for SRE, site reliability engineer also. These practices are definitely bringing in a lot of value adds, a lot of benefits. So we talked about some of the benefits like achieving a standardized environment, repetitive environment, or repeatable infrastructure, where you can reproduce those environment in a quick way, like reproducible environments. And you also get the consistency with cloud. Like you have a lot of features like auto scaling, which you can leverage to automatically increase and decreasing the resources when there is a need for it. And then you can also do a automated testing and scanning of your code using a lot of different tool sets. Like there are tools like Sonar or Sonar Cube, and there are many different, even within CloudFormation there is a tool called CFN Init or CFN Lint that can act as a scanning tool. So we talked about the templates benefit. Okay, so there are two different primary templating languages, JSON and YAML, which are predominantly used for writing the template. So primarily we are talking about infrastructure as a code. Okay, there are a lot of programming languages where you can have application as a code. See, if you remember, when there is a business opportunity, okay, the business team or the business owner will go and understand the requirements. So they will gather the requirements, and then they will form a team to create a product or to create an application that can fulfill all the business related challenges or business opportunity. So that's how the application gets into a form, right? Whereas here we are talking about the same methodology or the same philosophy, where we are trying to have a template that could be easily used for deploying the infrastructure. And if there is a similar requirement in the future, we can deploy that infrastructure using that same template. So we want to reuse as much as possible, and that's the benefit that we are getting from these templating languages. And any language to be popular or any language to be successful, it has to be human readable, right? So these are all pretty much both the languages are human readable languages, and they are all open standard, and they also transmit the data in object format. And yeah, and it supports all the different operating system flavors like Windows, Linux, and you can run it in Mac as well. So the code is very, very lightweight in nature, and both the tool, like it's all declarative. So we go and declare what kind of information that we want to implement or specify. So these are all declarative templates in nature. And we were starting to discuss about the structure of the template or structure of the JSON code or the YAML code. So in general, when you say structure, we call it a schema, right? How it should look like. Even when we are creating a KB article or a SOP, standard operating procedure, or even when we are creating a high level design or low level design document, the document should have to have a template. Version control, versioning is very, very important, where we capture like what is the latest version of the file, and what changes has been made in the latest version, and so on. So even here also in the code, we should have a version control, so that if someone comes and looking for the latest code, they will understand which code was recently created and what is the latest version available, and they will go and reuse that particular code for the subsequent deployment, because the support environment is dynamic, right? People will come and go, and then different resources will support the environment. So versioning is very, very important and mandate for any document that we write. Even for infrastructure as a code, the template should have to have the version control to start with, and we also should have the description will give you a context on what is the purpose of that particular infrastructure as a code template, whether it is used for deploying the infrastructure for a specific application or whether it is going to deploy certain services, and what are the different environment and what kind of benefits these particular script going to bring in will be mentioned in that text field. I'll show you some examples and you will get to understand. So the purpose of the template will be mentioned in the description field. So now coming to the actual code, you will have a lot of metadata when you're going and deploying any resources, right? So either virtual machine or S3 bucket. So there will be a lot of properties like what is the virtual machine instance type, and what is the security group attached to it, what kind of ports that are allowing on that particular thing, which key pair we are using, and similarly for S3 whether we have got the lifecycle management enabled, whether encryption is there or not, and then whether we have got this general purpose or what kind of type we are using. So all those metadata information, the properties will have to be mentioned as per the customer requirement. This is where we declare the um, uh, service configuration information. And we also have certain parameters that we can also enter. Those are the values that we are going to provide against the each and every metadata information. And if there are certain conditions or like mapping, let's say like my EC2 instance should have to alert me using SNS notification topic, or my EC2 should go and store the log in S3 bucket, or the CloudWatch event should trigger when there is some issue on my S3 bucket or my containers and whatever, right? So you can have some mapping conditions between AWS resources. And the conditions is like you can configure like if this particular resource does not exist, go and create it, or if the condition, if the resource is already there, you can skip that, or you can ignore that particular creation. You can write conditions so that you can manage the deployment in a much better way. And at the end, like you will get to know what are the different resources that are getting created using this template, using this infrastructure as a code, how many different resources we are creating, like whether we are creating S3 bucket or just EC2 instance, or we are creating a couple of EC2 instance with a load balancer and a public IP. Like all those resources details will be available within the infrastructure as a code at the very last. And you can also have your own customized output if you want. So whether you want to display the list of resources that has got created, and then like what are the different parameters that you want to show or list, so that you can easily identify like the host name of the system, or the location, the link, the URL for the system, like all those information you can have it listed at the output section. So I will show you a quick example so that way you can relate what I'm talking about when it comes to template. So let me go to the console. Okay, let me quickly log in. Let me enter the code. Okay, so let's go to the CloudFormation template. So CloudFormation is a service which is used for creating the resources using the template. Okay, it looks like there are a couple of templates that I have not deleted, but we'll let it be there. So some people call it as CFT in short, Cloud Formation Template, right? CFT. So CFT, Cloud Formation Templates, is used for specifically deploying the infrastructure or resources in AWS platform. right? It can be your private cloud or public cloud. It is AWS platform. So there are tools like ARM templates in Azure Resource Management Template. This is specific to Azure, and there are tools like which are like Terraform. You can use this tool for multi-cloud or hybrid cloud environment. So many organizations where they have multi-cloud or hybrid cloud, generally they will go for Terraform. That is also an infrastructure as a code tool for deploying your infrastructure in a multi-cloud or hybrid cloud environment. So there are alternate options that are available even within AWS, like AWS got CDK, as I told you yesterday, Cloud Development Kit. If you are a programmer, if you are a developer, you can go and write the infrastructure as a code in your own favorite language, like Python, PHP, or Java, or whatever is your favorite language. You can go and write it in your own language. Similarly, um, Microsoft Azure provides you Bicep. That is also a tool that you can use for writing infrastructure as a code in your own favorite language. So here we are using CFT, and here there are two options. So CFT, you can go and create it as a separate stack, and then you can also import the existing resources in the stack, and that way, if some organization has already created the resources using the GUI, the manual method, you can also convert those existing resources into a template, and you can start managing them as a template. So you can create the stack. Stack is the set of resources that you can create. So there are two options. One, we can create with new resources. That is the standard option. Whereas you can also with existing resources also, you can create a template. That is the import option, where for an existing TNT environment, you can go and import it. So there are two type of deployments, right? Greenfield means you are just deploying everything from the scratch, from the beginning. There might be situations where you might have an existing setup, existing environment, and you might have to do a TNT from one service provider to another service provider, transition and transformation. So as part of the TNT, transition and transformation, maybe your organization might have a best practice or standard to have all the resources covered using infrastructure as a code. Then you might have to import those resources into Terraform stack, sorry, CloudFormation stack, and you have to manage it. So earlier, we used to have something called Designer, CloudFormation Designer, where you can go and graphically design the template and then create the resources using that. But now the name has been changed to Composer, right? So earlier, this is the name we used to have. So CloudFormation Designer is the tool. You can also go to that tool. Still, that earlier version is still available. If you want to use that former version of the designer, you can still use it. But this is the improved version. Okay, so Composer. So people call it as Application Composer or CloudFormation Composer, and it all depends. So here we are talking about infrastructure as a code. So we will talk about Infrastructure Composer. Formerly, it was known as CloudFormation Designer. Okay, now this is a graphical tool to create the template for your requirement. I'll come to this part, but then we have to create it as a template first using the so there are options there. If you look at the right, when if you want to create a new stack, you can just, there are three options. Okay, so you can have the IAC generator. There is the IAC generator option. So if you want to scan the existing resources using the IAC generator, it will generate the infrastructure as a code. That option is there. Okay, so you can do that. So stack is based on a template. So a template is a JSON or YAML file that contains the infrastructure configuration information about the resources that you want to include in the stack. So it is a stack is a template. So there are three options here. Choose an existing template. If you already have organization has created something, you can choose an existing template. Maybe even AWS provides you a lot of template that are there in your GitHub for consumption. But your organization, if they have something already, you can go and choose an existing template. So as a developer, sorry, as a beginner to CloudFormation, you can use a sample template. So sample template will help you to understand how the structure works. That is where we are now, right? And you can also upload the template, or you can graphically design the template using infrastructure composer. That is a visual way of building your template and get things created. So CFT composer or CFT infra composer is a beautiful GUI tool. So there are three ways to create the stack. So in order to explain the sample, in order to explain the structure, I will take one of the sample from the template. So from the drop down, there are many different options here. So if you look at here, there are multi availability zone deployment option where you will get redundancy across the resources. If you are creating multiple systems EC2 instances, it will go and get deployed in multiple availability zone, and even your RDS database will be deployed in multiple availability zone. So these are all multi availability zone samples. So in when you go for production environment, you generally go for multi-AZ for higher availability and redundancy. So here it is a test case development. We are just doing a POC. I will just choose this sample template. See, this sample template that I've chosen is a LAMP stack. If you're from Linux background, you might have already related it. So LAMP stands for Linux with Apache web server, and then it is also going to install the MySQL database plus PHP application. So it has all the three tier within that. So it has got the web, it has got the database, it has got the application, all three layers in the same template. And the base operating system is a Linux operating system. So you can go and deploy this LAMP template, and you can also view the template that you have selected in the infrastructure composer. So if you go and view it, it will show you like what is the name and what is the set of systems that it is going to create. And there are two views. Okay, one you can have a graphical view, I mean the GUI view. So it says it is going to create a web server instance, and it is also going to create a web server security group to control the traffic for this web server instance. And if I go to the template view, it will show me the JSON template. And if I copy this, okay, you can see that there is a lot of different information here. But overall, maybe in order to make you understand this easily, I will just go to my Visual Studio Code and I will just create a new file. And here I will just say this is a JSON type file. And then, okay, new text file. Just let's go to JSON only. Okay, let's do one thing. I will just open this and then replace it. Okay, so here the Visual Studio Code or Eclipse, so these kind of tools are very useful when you are talking about template or programming. The reason is, so in order to understand the structure of the document, so let's say like I was explaining that a template should have a version number, right? So you can see that it has got a version number with some year, month, date, and that's what it has got. So in template also, in template you will have this template format version, and next you have the description will say you like what it is going to create, and what is the purpose of that, and what are the resources that are getting created. So it is a very detailed one, and you can see the details, and then it is also giving you some warning that these resources are chargeable, and you might end up with pricing. So you can also add such notes, warning and stuff in that particular template. So if I just look at here, it is giving that. You can move on to the right. So it says like this demonstrate, and then warning, this template create an EC2 instance. You will be built for the AWS instances if you create the stack from this template. So that is fine. And then this is the description. Okay, so maybe I will then put it here so that way you can see it. So next comes the metadata information. What are the different steps that I'm going to create? I'm going to create a key name for my EC2 instance. I'm going to create a database. I'm going to create a database user and password. And on the left, you have the option to go and um, group them. See, I can easily show you what I was talking about in the template, right? So template has got a version, template has got a description, it has got the parameter section, it has got the mapping section, it has got the resources section, and finally it has got the output section. In output, it will give me the URL of the newly created lamp stack. So it will have a HTTP and then the IP address of the web server instance, and this is the output it is going to show me. So outputs are just a add-on. Okay, so it is not mandatory. And resources listing also, you can see that it is going to create a web server instance, and then what kind of additional steps it is going to do within that web server instance. It is going to install this some of the packages that is part of the lamp stack. So if you look at here, it is going to install MySQL, PHP, and then Apache, like the HTTPD package. So these are the packages that it is going to install. So automatically the code is doing like what are the different resources getting created, what are the packages, and so on. And within the parameters, these are the AWS metadata information that will get created. Like if you scroll down, you can see that the instance type, and then it is choosing the default T2 small. And then if you want to customize it, you can customize it. So some organization might go and customize the template. Let's say my organization standard is not to create specific type of instances. So in such cases, so what I will do is I can just go here, and then let's say the high cost instances, right? So these are some of the high cost instances like CCI or a GPU version, compute version. So what I want to do is I want to just allow few options which are very cheap in nature. So let's say I want to allow only this options. Okay, and then I want to remove the memory bigger size ones. Okay. Okay, so I'm just leaving only few options. Like let's say instead of 100 options, I'm just leaving only these default options to be allowed. I'm just removing the larger ones so that I don't get that option to get the resources created. Okay, instead of 100 allowed values, I'm just allowing only few values for my continuously repeat getting calls. Let me check. Okay, so now I can just go to my create template option. Okay, so I can just go and store this in a particular template. Okay, so in a S3 bucket, these templates could be stored there. Okay, I can confirm and continue to store that in that S3 bucket. So now if I go and look at the template here, if I click on next, so what did I do? I have shortlisted the list of options that I could see here. See earlier it had G option, I option, in the instance type, right? There are many different instance type like GPU family, storage IOPS family, and then the confidential compute family. So all of those options are now removed away. So if you want to standardize, if you want to restrict with some of the options, you can go and pre-populate it. So by default in the template, we saw that it has got a default option. See here in the template, the default value is T2 small. That's the reason automatically in the template, you can see the default T2 small is automatically getting selected. And if you look at here, I've got only limited options because I've removed some of these options. So if you look at the original template, it has got many options here, like starting with C series, H series, D series, R series. These are all very costly ones for the resource that we are creating. So what I've done is I've streamlined the creation. So similarly, if you want to have some default values, or if you want to have some allowed values, you can go and add default valued and allowed values. So automatically it will pick and choose the default value if you are not choosing something. So here I will just say stan lamp stack 01. Let's for an just for an example, and then I can give it a name. I can just say stan database, and then password. I can just give some password. Okay, and then this is going to create Apache installation, and then it is going to have PHP as well as it is going to have MySQL, right? So database user, I'm just giving it a stan. Okay, key name, I can just select whichever key name from that region and then click on next. close this. So if I want to give some specific permissions for specific roles and stuff, I can also do that. But let me show you how to create the resource from the template. So let me submit it. Okay, so what will happen is when you go and create it, it will have the timestamp. So very important thing is you have the option to go and refresh it here. So always look at the latest entry. Okay, don't look at the older log. So these are all logs at 10:37:21 second. It was create in progress, and when at 10:37:23, the web security was create in progress. But now at 10:37:32 second, the web security has group has got created, and if you click on refresh, it will start adding the event. So there are certain additional things that are getting created. So web server instance is getting initiated, it is getting created. So if you keep refreshing, you will see the logs events getting added. So you mean it is not that you have to keep on refreshing it, but if you do that, then you will get to understand what is happening currently. I can also go to my EC2 instance and S3 bucket to see whether the resources that I have mentioned is getting created. So as part of the LAMP stack, so I should start seeing one resources, one EC2 instance getting created, right? You can see it is getting created, and you can also check the log here, how it is getting created. So it is getting created part of the stan lamp stack 01, and you can also have some tag here. It will have some tag. So if you look at here, these are the default tag it will add if the resource is getting created using CloudFormation. So it will add a logical name, it will add a stack name, it will also say like from which stack on which date it has got created. So you can go and cross reference from where exactly it was created, and you can also go and check the template file. The JSON file will also be there in your S3 bucket for your reference. So if you look at here, it will have a CF file, CloudFormation template. So it has got created just today, November 17th. And within that, you can also see that there is a JSON file. This is the JSON file or YAML file. You can use it for deploying subsequent deployment. Even you can use the CloudFormation stack listing here. So you can just select it, and then you can also go and deploy more resources. So from here, you can also go and create some new resources, or you can go and look at it. So there are many different sections, as I told you. So as of now, the web server instance is getting created, and I guess it has already got created. So it's running, and the status check is still going on. So if the 2x2 checks are done, we can go and yeah, it is done. So if I go to my template here, if I go to my output, I should see the IP address of the EC2 instance. So this is the EC2 instance IP address that it has got created. So website URL, right? As I told you in the template. So what exactly I've asked the template output to show? I have asked it to show the EC2 instance public DNS name with HTTP before that public DNS name. So this is the public DNS name of my EC2 instance, which has got EC2 hyphen the public IP address .compute1.amazon.com, and before that it has added the prefix of HTTP. So and it is also saying that this is the URL of my newly created LAMP stack. You can just whatever change you can change it. So description is just for our understanding. So this is the output you are seeing in the output section, and similarly under the resource section, it will show me the list of resources it has got created using this template. So ideally, it will show me like which EC2 instances got created, and what are the different resources, web server security group. So those are the things you will see under the resources grouping. See, these are the two logical things that has got created: one web server instance and one web server security group. You can also see that here. So there is a security group that got created, and for that you will have a proper name because it has got created using web server this thing. Yeah, the security group name is here. So web server security group is the logical ID, and you can also go and check the tag. It will also have the same exact tag of the CloudFormation templates. So it will add at least the three different stack here. So it will have the name, it will have the stack ID from which it got created, and it will have the stack name of the CloudFormation template from which it got created. So now I can go and try and enter that link and then see if it is opening up the web page for me. Yeah, it is having the backend of PHP, and it has got the database connection. So you can also see that database also is local to that server. So it is clearly showing me that the instance ID, the server, the content completely. So this is how you can go and create a lamp stack within a click of button from the CloudFormation template. So you can see that Apache details are there, PHP details are there, and you can also see the database details. So all of the details are completely filled in, and you've got a beautiful front end web page that clearly shows what are the different stuffs in that system. So, for example, let's say as a cloud operations engineer, as a AWS administrator, I'm just looking at the template. So there is some issue that is being notified to us. I have got a ticket where it says someone has changed something, and then the environment is down, or there is slowness. So there are easier way to find out what are the different changes that has been made quickly. I will show you how to do that. So let me just, so if you go to there are two resources that has got created, right? Let's say I'm just going to touch some specific resource here. Okay, so I'm going to one of my, so here, let's say currently in the inbound rules, so it should have automatically allowed the 80 port, because that is how I'm able to access it, right? And it has allowed the 80 port. So instead of 80 port, I'm just changing something here. Okay, someone is trying to change from HTTP to HTTPS, and someone is adding some additional rule to allow SMTP. Just for an example, okay, I'm making some minor changes here, and I can also preview the change what is being made. So I'm updating a new the existing group from HTTP to HTTPS. That is one entry, and I'm adding a new rule which is adding a SMTP. So in sometimes, like when you're having a very big security group rule, you might have to do this preview check before you are confirming it. Okay, so you can just go and do a preview check and then confirm whether the entry that you are making, the changes that you are making, is aligned to your expectation. So I've just made some changes now, and if I want to find out what has got changed quickly, there are two options here. If I go to my lamp stack and just go to my home screen here under the stack actions, there is the option to go and find out the drift result. Drift means what change has been made recently, or what are the changes that has been made since the creation of this particular resource. So in order to view that, you have to go and first detect the drift. So detecting the drift means you are going and finding out what are the different changes that has been made on the resource is going to get detected now. Okay, so it will go and run that for some time. So you can see drift detection has been initiated. And here on the left, you can go to that drift screen. So it will clearly show me there are two resources in your account, and there are these are all part of your specific AWS stack. And you can see that the security group has got modified, right? Whereas the web server instance is completely in sync. There is no changes in that. And this particular security group shows us drift status is, it will only show the details of the resources which are in drift stage status. Okay, so this is very useful for your operations team, the administration team. Drift detection. So there is also an option called root cause analysis option that is also pretty much similar. Under the cloud formation itself, you will see that. I will show that also. So here drift detection or detect drift is a tool to enable you to detect whether the stack actual configuration is matching the implemented environment. If the template and the implemented environment is different, it will clearly show you that the actual configuration is completely different. So if you want to go and look at, you can just select it, the modified resources, and then click on view drift details. It will clearly show me what is the drift and when it was made. So you can clearly show that this is the desired configuration. This is the expected configuration. On the right, you can see that there is some additional things. So here the expected configuration is I should only allow 22 port and 80 port, whereas on the right I can see 22 port is still there, but on top of that there are two more entries, 443 is there and then 25 is there. And if there is a big code, it will be very tough to go and look into the code. So here easily they will show you what are the differences. So in the difference they are saying, instead of the expected value is 80, but someone has created a SMTP rule. Okay, and then similarly there is one more entry again that is also having a correspondence, and current value they are having like 0.0.0. That is also something someone has added it. So from 443 using HTTP, they have allowed complete internet traffic. So someone has added this, someone has modified this. So those are the two entries that you can see here, right? So this is how you can easily troubleshoot any drift or any changes by any administrators in your organization. So you can easily go and roll back if there is a situation like that. Okay, so there are some more options which I will explain now. Okay, if I want to go and fix that, you can go and copy the code and you can apply it and you can also fix it. Or if I want to just go and fix that, I can come here and then come to that security group. You can close this. You can select it. So I want to fix that drift. So as administrator, I can go and ensure that the desired state is matching the implemented state. So this is not needed. So I'll go and edit the inbound rule. So I can just change this to HTTP. So this is one change that was there. And then this is one rule that was added. So I can just go and save the rule. So now I can go back to the template and then find out whether the drift is still there. So it will clearly show me the drifted time. Okay, so last drift was detected at this time and whether the resource is drifted or not. And I can just go back here and then again detect the stack drift. You can give it a refresh, or you can just say detect drift state, and it is still showing the status is drifted, but the last check time was 10:44. Okay, so sometimes you might have to go and do it again. So I'll just select the specific resource and then detect the drift for that resource now. So it clearly says there is some still modification. Okay, so but the time stamp is still old. Okay, 10:44. This is where you have to go to the stack first, and then from the stack action, always detect the drift. Okay, so sometimes you might not see the actual latest update when you're directly going to the drift status. So always go and initiate a new detect drift on the stack level and then come to the drift console and now refresh it. So it is clearly saying that now the resource is completely in sync and the recent timestamp is 10:49. There was a drift detection that was done. So this is how you can ensure that your environment is completely in sync with the desired state and the actual implementation state. Okay, so stack is where you go and create the list of resources for your environment. So stack is the very starting point. It's the template where you will go and create a group of resources or single resource or group of resources. So here in our case, we created multiple resources. It created EC2 instance, it created S3 bucket, it created security group, right? So you can go and create a single resource or a multiple resource. So maximum, I think there is some limit, maximum of 200 stacks you can have in a particular account per region. Okay, so that is more, I mean, it's a soft limit. If you want to increase that number of stacks you are creating for a particular organization or AWS account, you can go and increase it. So it is going to implement and manage the resource that you are defining in your template, and it is going to also maintain, it is also going to keep the status of the resources. So that way, if there is any changes that are made, it will go and easily find out. So there is one more thing called change set. Okay, so change set is very useful when you are going and doing a change activity. So this change set, it is going to show you the preview of changes. So if you go to the change set, it will tell us like if you execute the stack, what are the different changes, what are the different operations that is going to happen, whether it is going to create something or update something or modify something or delete something. So it will clearly tell us what is going to happen in your environment. So if you have a very complex code or a complex template or a complex application, so this change template, it will help you to go and easily identify what exactly will happen if I go and deploy that particular uh, thing. Okay, so here I can just say create change set for the current stack. I can go and check the new template or use the existing template. I can go and verify what are the different stuffs that it is going to happen. Click on next. These are the previous ones. So it will tell me like if I have made some minor changes on my template, at the very last it will tell me like what are the different changes that are going to be happen. Okay, so this is how before you implement the real deployment, you can also go through the change set console or wizard to identify if there are some additional resources that are getting changed, and it is like a review and submit option. So it is going to just give you the changes that will happen. It will not implement, it will not go and deploy anything. This is mainly to submit some evidences in your change request or in your change ticket. You can go and show them these are the changes that are going to happen, and that is what is customer have asked for it. So sometimes you might have requirement to go and create stack set. Stack set is multiple stacks together. So you might have one separate stack for web server, one separate stack for database server, and if you want to create a stack set is a group of stack. So if you want to create multiple stacks with one particular stack set, you can easily go and create them, group them. For example, if you have a set of servers in one region, and if you want to create the same set of stacks in another region, you can combine them into a stack set, and then you can replicate it easily to another environment. So stack set, it is easy to group a set of stacks in your CloudFormation template, and you can group them and then deploy it in a easier way. So stack is a single deployment, but within that single deployment, you can create one resource or multiple resources. But stack set is a group of stacks. Change set is a preview option where it will give you what are the different changes that you are going to make using this template that you have created, and the stacks are the single thing. And drift detection is another important thing which is used for root cause analysis. I think there is a new option called root cause analysis itself. I have seen it somewhere here, right? Overview. Yeah, here is the option, right? So you can, if you click on this detect root cause, it will tell us like what is the reason why that change was happened. So that it will go and check all the event list, and then it will tell us like what is the problem, what has got changed recently, and what has resulted in that particular outage or thing. So earlier, like root cause analysis or problem ticket management is a very tough task, but these days CloudFormation has simplified that in a very easier way. So this is a good example of infrastructure as a code. You can go and play around on your own. Like for example, I will show one more demo quickly. So this time I'll create directly from new resources. Instead of choosing the existing template, I will create from the scratch. Maybe I'll show one from the designer, which is the composer now. So people call it as CloudFormation Composer. So I will go to the CloudFormation Composer here. So maybe customer is asking me to create a set of resources. On the left, you can see what are the different list of resources or resources that are there that could be created. So let's say I want to search for something. So there are 1,331 resources that are stuff. Okay, and then maybe I will just say S3. Okay, and here from here I can just drag and drop. Just give me a second. One more second. Okay, so you can just drag and drop, and then here you can just go and link something. For example, if I want to link this with some other policy, I can just go and link it. So here on the right, you can see that there is a option to go and link certain things. Okay, so similarly, like for your web server, you have got an option to link the security group, right? So there are some options where which you can use and use it for creating a link. Okay, let me just give it an escape, and then okay, they both are the same thing. It is a sub metadata. So you cannot link to a metadata, but you can just link it to a something like I will show you this. So in my requirement, sometimes I might have to create some EC2 Elastic IP. Okay, let me just put it as a separate resource. And then I can also put some EC2 instance, and I can also add some security group. So you can also just drag and drop and then link them. So if you look at the resource, each resource will have some options here. And let me just close this. Let me just delete this. Okay. So you can also group them. Okay, so that way it looks neat. So you can also make it into a full screen, or if you want to just validate, you can also validate it. So whatever number of resources you want, and then you can just group them. So let me do one thing. Instead of having too many resources, I will start with a simple resource and then show you first how this work, and then we can look at other options. Okay, so I will search for the resource. Let's say S3. I want to create an S3 bucket. So here what I can do is I can go and look at the logical ID and then the details. So it is saying it is having a logical ID of bucket name. Okay, I can just say stand bucket 01. And then if I want to do some website hosting, or if I want to override the default bucket name, I can just override that. And then if I want to just add some additional information, right? Like for example, I want to add some stack name into that, or I want to give some uh, account ID in that bucket. I can also give whatever additional things. It will go and fetch the stack ID, and then it will add it here, and it will also add the account ID at the Xteam right. So I can just click on save for now, and then if I want to create the template, I can just say create template, and then I can just put it in the same S3 bucket, or if I want to, I can create one more S3 bucket and store it there. So I will use the same S3 bucket to store the template. So now I have created the template using infrastructure composer tool, which is the designer tool in the past. And then I can click on next. So if you look at here, this time it has stored it as a YAML file. Okay, and you can also go and see that YAML file. So I was explaining about the differences between JSON and YAML, right? So in JSON, we had a lot of different the braces, the bracket, and all those things. But now, if you look at here, it is the same content, but without any braces or bracket. So you can see that it has got. I will just copy this and I will explain it in my uh, thing here. Let me add a. Okay, let me create new and then put it here, and then I will also create new. I'll compare the JSON and YAML. So I can also go switch to the JSON format here. See, JSON has got the brackets, braces, and all those things, right? So that is the only difference. But then the content within that is exactly the same. the structure is also exactly the same. So if I go to the YAML code, it has got the properties, it has got the key value pair that it is going to create, and then even for my JSON file also, it has got the exact same content. Only thing is it has got the structure here. So it has got the resources, it has got the bucket policy, and it has got the bucket name. So you can go and structure them very well. Here also it will have the same thing. Bucket policy is there, and then you have the S3 bucket is there. So these are the two resources it is getting created. So simple difference between JSON and YAML is YAML and the YAML is more simplistic, and it supports more data type than JSON. And you can also, as I told you yesterday, it has got indentation. See, if I have to create something within the stand bucket, for example, I have to give a name, I have to mention some properties, I have to use this indentation. So you can see that there is 4 spaces here, and the next line will have 6 spaces, and then the next line within that will have 8 spaces. Okay, so that is the indentation that you have to be clear about. But otherwise, it's exactly the same code between JSON and YAML. So JSON looks little lengthier, whereas YAML looks very simplified. You can just go and validate the code for any syntax error or whatever, and then you can go and deploy it. You can validate both of them. So there is just a switch option to use YAML template and JSON template. You can use any of them in AWS, right? I can just go and create it, and then I have not made any changes, but just to ensure that I'm creating it, I'm just putting it again. I can give it a name. I can just say stand S3 bucket creation using the designer option, right? And then click on next. So you can go and add any additional elements to it. If you want to have some stack creation option, or if you want to add some additional inputs, tags, you can also add it. If you want to add some output also, you can add some output here. But I'll just go and create it so that you understand it quickly. Okay, now as I told you, it will show create in progress here at 11:04. It is create in progress. You keep on refreshing, so that way you can see what is happening, whether the bucket creation is initiated, the user has initiated as the resource creation is now initiated. So that means these are all different log. Maybe it might look similar, but on the right you can see the status reason why there are multiple event entries. Okay, you can click create. So creation of the bucket is also done. The bucket policy is also now created. So bucket creation, bucket policy creation, both are complete. You can go to the right and then see the detailed information. So now I can go and check my S3 entry here, and then see whether there is a new bucket that has got created for stan stan S3 bucket creation. So what it has done is, like in the template I have mentioned that, right? I want to have the stack name hyphen the bucket name and then the account name. So if I don't want this format, you can just go and overwrite and then change that structure in that particular template code. So while creating the template, I have mentioned that particular stuff. So if I go to my um, stack info, see, this is what it has got created. Stand bucket name hyphen the bucket, and then all those things. So if I go and click this, it will directly take me to the S3 bucket that it has got created. So I can start using this for my usage. So this is how you can easily utilize the CloudFormation template for your uh, business requirement. So coming to the slide, I can just quickly recap what we have been discussing. So infrastructure as a code, right? It is one of the DevOps principle, and DevOps, it is part of the DevOps framework, where if you are deploying the environment using the code, you can easily identify, build the entire environment in a programmatic way. And if you want to create it again and again, you can just go and use the code, so that all the parameters, the metadata information is already populated. So this is a efficient way of automating things. And even if there is a problem, you can go and quickly identify the drift root cause, and then you can roll back and fix the problem very easily. So it has got a very high visibility, and automation is the core. And the orchestration, it will go and create the resources in a particular orderly fashion. And the stability is what you achieve, right? So if you are using the template, so you will not there is no human intervention, so there will not be manual errors. So automatically whatever you are creating using the template, 100 resource if you create also, it will be exactly the same, because you are using infrastructure as a code, you are using the template, you are reusing it. So reusability is very very high, and you can reproduce the environment exactly same as you have done. So cloud formation is a infrastructure as a code service which you can use for creating single AWS service or group of AWS service in a very orderly and a predictable fashion. So it is using the common language like JSON and YAML, which are both are open source and human readable language, and both of them are using key value source. And they also provide you an option to go and model the template using the composer. We can go and model them and then get it created. So it can also go and group the set of resources. It can be marketplace resources, or it can be AWS native products and services. So if you're creating single stack, that is fine. Or if you want to create multiple stacks together, you can also go and create the stack set. So provisioning quick is one thing, and you are consistently creating the environment by using the same set of configurations and template. And you can manage the complete life cycle of the resources. You will get to know if someone has changed something, or if some some error has populated, or some event has got generated recently. All those things are getting documented. So you can integrate this cloud formation with CI/CD tools like Jenkins or GitHub Actions, or you can use it with code pipeline, AWS native. So we'll get to see those things during this week. Okay, the code pipeline and the CI/CD option. So DevOps has got many different important principles, right? And as part of that, we are discussing the automation and infrastructure as a code now, whereas we will also discuss the CI/CD, continuous integration and continuous deployment, this week. And as I told you, you can store the files in multiple different format. You can store it as JSON file extension, or YAML, or YML, or template, or TXT. CloudFormation can pick all these 5 different file extensions. So you can use any different file extension. CloudFormation will be able to use all these 5 different uh, extensions. So you can save it in any format, and CloudFormation will just take it. So that is another important thing that you can do. You can store it in S3. Generally, people store it in S3 bucket and fetch it from there only. Okay, so template is the code, infrastructure is a code that is formatted in JSON and YAML, and that is where you go and define the parameters, the metadata, resource creation. And CloudFormation is the tool where it does the stack creation and updates, and you can also go and detect the errors and roll back in a very quick way. And CloudFormation is a free tool. That is very very important point. And the resources that you are creating, like EC2 instances, S3 buckets, so those are all chargeable, but CloudFormation tool is free of cost. You don't have to pay anything for the CloudFormation tool usage. And yeah, so this is what has happened, right? When we went and created a template starting from scratch, it created the JSON file or YAML file, and we stored it in S3 bucket. And from the S3 bucket, it will access the JSON file or YAML file. The CloudFormation template will access this, and it will create the resources and show us the output of what has got created. So there are multiple advantages, but top 3 advantage, it helps us to quickly replicate the exact existing environment into a new region or a new location by just copying that JSON file or YAML file. It is helping us to very much simplify the infrastructure deployment and the management. You can also easily control and track the changes that is happening on your AWS environment. Those are the top 3 advantages. Benefit wise, it is a complete infrastructure modeling tool. You can automate the deployment and orchestrate the deployment using that particular cloud formation. And stability is what everyone is looking at from the environment wise. So if you want, if you can quickly roll back or fix some issues, so that's the expectation of a operations engineer, right? Or a reliability engineer. So you can use this for reusability and scalability purpose, and this is going to help you with a lot of different use cases. So I've already showed you the template anatomy, how the JSON looks like it will have the braces and brackets, and then the double quotes for the string and all those things, whereas in your YAML file, you will not see those braces and all those things, but you will see a indentation here. So indentation is, if I'm adding something within a particular section, I will see double spaces, 4 spaces, 6 spaces, 8 spaces, and so on under the array kind of stuff. So template is something which we have talked about the anatomy. And what else we have? So these are the different sections that we have within the template. You have the version control, you have the description, you have the metadata, you have the parameters within that, where you go and mention what are the different resources you are going to create, and then the output. Okay, any question so far? Okay, so these are the best practices. So always use, don't embed the credentials within the template. Use secrets manager or KMS key for the storing the credentials or secrets, and always validate the template before deploying them, and always use the change set before updating your stack. So that way, any changes that you are doing will not have any in appropriate impact to your environment. Always go and use those change set option, validation option, change detect or a drift detection option. Always do a code peer review before you go and do a deployment, because whoever is there uh, in your organization, they can also do a peer review. That way they can go and check if you have defined something. So generally when you create a document, you will do a peer review, right? They will go and read your document, and then they say if there is a grammatical mistake, or if there are something which has to be updated, they can also help you with reviewing and helping you with the documentation. So pricing, there is no cost structure for using the CloudFormation. You are only going to be charged for deploying those resources. So comparing it with Terraform, Terraform is a infrastructure as a code tool for deploying resources across multi-cloud environment. Like you can use Terraform to create resources in AWS, Azure, GCP, on-premises data center, whereas CloudFormation is purpose built for AWS platform. And Terraform supports Terraform uses its own language called HashiCorp configuration language, and you can also use JSON in Terraform. And state management is some additional benefit that you get in Terraform, and execution control is there. And there are some additional iterations that you can have in your Terraform. You can go and create your own module. But whereas CloudFormation is a IAC as a service, okay, so you are getting ready-made service for creating the template and deploying it. Whereas Terraform, you can go and install it in your environment. You can go and have full control on the Terraform platform. And Terraform also provides you Terraform Cloud Enterprise, which is kind of a similar option like how we are using CloudFormation. So CloudFormation is infrastructure as a code as a service. You are not installing any server, or you are not installing any backend environment to get started. Whereas Terraform, you might have to do some software installation and then have it. So there are 20 plus important providers that it can integrate with, like Google Cloud, AWS, Azure, on-premises, OpenStack or OpenShift. So there are many different providers that are available, and within that provider, there are many hundreds and hundreds of modules that are available for Terraform. But CloudFormation is limited to AWS. But there are few more things. Terraform, it was an open source project earlier, but now HashiCorp is providing you the support plans and the subscription for your Terraform services. Whereas CloudFormation is a service from AWS, which is free of cost. You don't have to procure any license, or there is no support plan that is separately needed. So HashiCorp configuration language is what you have within the Terraform. That is the native language, but it also supports JSON. CloudFormation supports two different template format. You can write it in JSON, or you can write it in YAML, but you can also store it in text file format or .template format. It will pick up that. And CloudFormation does not have modules. Okay, but then Terraform has got that modules where you can go and create a specific set of environment. It is similar to stack set, but it is very different in a way that let's say like in Terraform, if you create a module, you can copy that module to another cloud region or cloud location and start creating that. Okay, so there are a few more benefits like importing options and so on that was earlier available only in Terraform, but now AWS also has got the import option for your existing cloud formation resources. You can also verify the changes using the change set. There is a option called named plan in Terraform that also do the same thing. It will tell you like what are the changes that are going to happen if you are deploying the updated template, and that way you can overcome any problems in Terraform. Also here change set, here they call it as named plan as part of your blueprint. So you can also perform rolling update in CloudFormation. That is another biggest advantages in CloudFormation, whereas Terraform also, I think there are some recent options, but earlier there was a lot of limitation. So comparing the cloud formation and the CDK, so AWS Cloud Development Kit is mainly for the developers. Okay, so developers might say, why I have to learn some templating language? I already know some programming language like Python or TypeScript or Java or C Sharp. If they want to create the infrastructure for the organization using the template, see there are couple of advantages with that. See, if your application language is Python and if you are creating the infrastructure also on Python, so only one language is used for both templates as well as for the automation as well as for your organization environment. So if you are that is the reason most of the organization is going for Python. Python can be a scripting language, it can be a templating language, it can be a programming language, it can be used for automation, it can be used for infrastructure as a code. So Python is very robust and it is very easy to learn. Even a new beginner can learn Python in a month or two. So Python is very famous because of that reason. It can be a single language that can be used for every different requirement. But yeah, many organizations are using YAML and JSON for infrastructure as a code for their application. They are using it. But even if you know some programming language, you can also write infrastructure as a template using CDK. Okay, so debugging and all those things, if you are already expecting that programming language, you know how to debug. But here, debugging, there are giving some options, but not as robust at CDK. So CloudFormation provides you that drift detection and so on. So it will give you only the resource level changes and so on. But CDK, it provides you a lot of more in-depth option. This is mainly for the developers who are already having the programming skills and the library skills. Whereas here, there is a learning curve. You have to go and learn how the YAML file, JSON file looks like. But these days, you get all the templates with sample already. Okay, so CloudFormation is being used for more than 10 years. So whatever template you want, it is already available in GitHub portal. If you go to GitHub, you can see a lot of different stacks, templates readily available. You just have to go and it is already very, very mature and well established. You can go and use that code for your reusing it. Okay, so CloudFormation is declarative in nature. We are going and declaring what are the different resources in a key value format. So if I'm creating a bucket name, what is the name of the bucket? If I'm creating some encryption, what is the encryption that I'm applying? So those are all declarative information that I'm going created. All the AWS services can be created in CloudFormation as well as in CDK. Both of them have got a similar level of stuff. So any questions on the AWS cloud formation? Okay, if not, then I will just take a few more minutes for touching upon one more services called AWS OPSWORK. See, this service is more or less, you can consider this as deprecated, but there are certain organizations, I mean, maybe from exam point of view, you might have still have some question. There are some organizations still they are using the existing OPSWORK deployment. So we were talking about infrastructure as a code, right? Similarly, you can also go and manage your environment like configuration as a code. So if you want to have some desired state configuration, or if you want to ensure consistent configuration on your environment, so you can also go and configuration settings as a code. This is again more or less infrastructure set of settings and configuration. So there are many different tools which are used for configuration management. So the more popular one is Ansible, and there are also other tools like Chef, Puppet, and tools like Salt Stack, and there are many other tools. So AWS also provides you managed services for this. So if you want to have in your on premises, you have to go and create some server and then install the Chef and then manage the environment. But AWS provides you AWS OPSWORKS, which is Chef as a service. Okay, they are providing you configuration management as a service, and they are also providing you with the same ops work. There is another option called Puppet Enterprise as a service. So you also get Puppet ready-made. So you don't have to install any server. It is serverless option. So AWS OpsWork is configuration management tool which you can use for managing the infrastructure configurations and application specific settings and application configuration also. So this is more of a developer tool, application developer tool, because you need that tool knowledge, and before you implement it, you might have to um, get into the understanding on what you can do and what you can achieve. Just give me a second. Okay, so from exam point of view, if there is a question around Chef or Puppet or configuration management, so you can just go and choose the ops work. So they help you with managing the configuration management as a code, and again, all the same benefit you get out of the template. Again, it's the same thing, right? If you want to have standardization, or if you want to have consistency, if you want to have reproducible environment, then you can use the AWS ops work, and it helps you with consistent deployments and so on. And again, it supports all the OS flavors like Linux, Windows. You can install it and use it there, and you can automate a lot of different things. When I say automate, if you want to have consistent configuration of your users and groups across all machines, and if you want to have the same scheduled jobs, or if you want to install some packages across different systems, or if you want to install some apps with some specific layers, you also have the option to manage the environment with configuration as a code. So they leverage something called they call it as cookbook recipe, or so like when you go and uh, cook, you will have the recipes, right? What are the different elements that you want to add for your recipe. So here also, like Ansible, sorry, Chef and Puppet especially. Okay, not it is not Puppet, it is Puppet. Okay, Chef and Puppet as a service is what OpsWork brings to the table, but many organizations are using Ansible. So the reason they have deprecated this service earlier, maybe 5 years back, if you look at the SSM Systems Manager, right? So Systems Manager was not as powerful as it is currently. SSM was only used for earlier. It was only used for AWS environment. Now it is supporting multi-cloud and hybrid cloud environment. So that way, so Systems Manager has evolved, and the requirement for Chef and Puppet has drastically come down. But there are still some organization who are still utilizing the Chef and Puppet for managing the configuration environment. But many organization, I would say 70 to 80% of the organization, they are using Ansible for their configuration management compared to Chef and Puppet. Ansible has been more user friendly, and they have started using it. So we'll spend a few minutes in understanding what exactly I'm talking about here. So there are four major tools: Chef, Puppet, Ansible, and Salt Stack, which are very popular in nature. 10 years back, Chef and Puppet are the very, very common tool when it comes to configuration management of your environment. And of course, Ansible has become very, very popular because of the simple and structured nature. You can go and create playbook. There are hundreds of playbook that are available in the internet for Ansible. So interface is also very easy, and the initial setup is also very quick when it comes to Ansible. So Ansible also is available as a service using Ansible Tower, and Ansible Cloud is there. Whereas Puppet Lab is also very easy to deploy, but Chef is initially, like the setup is very, very complicated. Once you set up, then Chef is very easy, but Puppet and Ansible are comparatively easy to install and set up, and you have got a very instinctive and complete web UI when it comes to Puppet, and this is mainly for programmer. So Chef, as an infrastructure engineer or as a cloud operations engineer, it is not very easy to adopt the Chef, because it has been developed for people who has got programming languages, and it has got its own security. You can store the encryption keys in Chef Vault, and here also you have high security with the SSH option. Scalability options are available across all of them. And Ansible, if you know Python, then yeah, Ansible is very easy to adopt. So that's the reason many people, many organizations want their engineers to be good in Python. Even the infrastructure team or developers, they are giving. I mean, you might already have seen, like, even the school syllabus also has got Python nowadays. Even the 11th standard grade syllabus for computer science department, it has got Python. Okay, so it is very very popular, and it is used everywhere in every DevOps framework, DevOps tooling. Python is becoming a mandate nowadays. But Puppet is built with Ruby, and then it has got Chef also is Ruby DSL. Okay, so there is pricing is different across these tools. So there are some support plan and subscription options that are available. So per node you have to pay $120 for the Puppet Labs, whereas here it is $72 per node. This is for the Chef, and then there are some free starter edition which you can use for evaluation. So all these tools are very very popular. The reason is they are all hybrid, and they can manage multiple different environment, and they also bring in a lot of automation, reporting, analytics. So it gives you a lot of additional value add. Okay, so that is the reason many organizations have been using Chef and Puppet in the past, but because of the simplicity and the cheaper pricing, and the environment is managed using Python code, it is very easy to use the Ansible. So if you're interested in learning Ansible for configuration management, so we already have 40-45 hours session dedicated for Ansible in our channel. You can go and utilize them. So there are, I mean, a lot of different architectural difference. With the Ansible, you have got only the server, whereas with Chef, Puppet, and Salt Stack, you have to go with the uh, client server architecture. So Ansible and Salt Stack, it has got a push deployment, whereas with Chef and Puppet, you have to go and pull the latest configuration and changes. Backend, you can also use databases for Chef. You can also go and integrate with PostgreSQL, and here Puppet also has its own native Puppet database where you need to take separate backup of these things, whereas configuration, it's very straightforward. And Ansible also supports YAML and JSON. That is the most important uh, stuff. If you know some configuration languages like templating languages like YAML and JSON, Ansible supports it. So there is a lot of contribution from the GitHub and the open source. There is a lot of commits that are happening. So if you see the Ansible, there is a lot of updates coming in, and even for the Salt Stack also, it is getting popular these days, because again it is a Python oriented programming language. That is the only reason it is becoming very very popular, and also it has got its own transport mechanism. So Salt Stack is also getting popular, and you can see there is a lot of new commit, and the enterprise version is also available for all the four products. So what AWS tried and did earlier, they want to give this configuration management as a service, for which they branded a name called OPSWORKS. Okay, OPSWORKS is a configuration management service through which you can build and operate highly dynamic application. So it is mainly for operating your application, but you can also manage the infrastructure to certain extent. But there are other tools, right, like systems manager, CloudFormation, CDK. There are many different tools through which you can manage the infrastructure, but this is mainly for hybrid or highly dynamic application. OpsWork could be used. So OpsWork, within that you go and create the cookbook or the playbook, and then you mention what kind of configuration settings you want for your environment, and you can go and automate it and implement it across different stuff. So this is how you go and create it. You will go and create a stack, and within that you will have layers: front end load balancer layer, and then web server layer, app layer, database layer. So in OpsWork, you have these concept, the entire stack, and within that you will have some layers that you will create. And within that layers, you will go and add how many instances you want for web server, how many instances you want for app server, how many instances you want database server, and then you will go and configure the in application also on those web application and database. So it is an end-to-end tool where you can go and deploy each and every environment with layer, and then within that layer you can go and configure how many instance you want for each layer, and then what kind of application you want to install on each layer. You can also do it with OPSWORK. So OPSWORK, it supports both EC2 instance and on premises, and it has got a lot of benefits because it supports a native option called OPSWORK stacks, which is a default option that they have developed using Chef. And they also have give you separate option to work on Chef as a service and Puppet as a service. So you don't have to really create or manage that. It is a serverless option, but behind the scene, AWS will create and manage those Chef servers and Puppet server on your behalf. So only thing you have to just update and then keep using it, secure the infrastructure, and manage the tooling environment. So there are two options like Puppet Enterprise, and then even there is an option called Stack, and there is also one more option called Chef Recipe. But you don't have to really learn this. The reason is they have already deprecated it. AWS have used it in the past, but after Ansible and Salt Stack has become very, very popular, this configuration management is completely deprecated. If you go to the console, you will see it. So here it clearly says OPSWORK has reached end of life and no longer available. There are some customers who are currently using it, and there are some exam questions, couple of questions around it. So that's the reason we have just touched this particular thing. So if you go inside that, it will clearly say May, I think May 2024, the OPSWORK stack has become deprecated. Ansible has taken over that, and if even if you go to Chef Automate, also you will see the same message. So 5th of March, sorry, 5th of May, it has also reached end of life, and Puppet also has reached end of life in March itself. So, but OpsWork was a very beautiful service when people were using it. It used to provide Chef as a service and Puppet as a service. You just don't have to go and install anything. Automatically, it will create servers for you, and you can go and consistently maintain the different layers and environment and application using one single tool. So it was a very, very powerful tool. Okay, it can use, it can be used for deploying the presentation, the web layer, application layer, database layer, and you can also manage what kind of software version you want, what kind of software settings you want. Everything could be managed in one single central console. So when it was available, it was a beautiful tool, but then Ansible and SaltStack has taken over that market, and many people have started learning Ansible, and because it is already used in more than 70 to 80% of the organization is using Ansible for their configuration management, and that is one of the important tool that you can learn as part of your DevOps learning curve. Okay, so this is what I had to complete yesterday. So since we had some interruptions, we could not complete, and now we have done that. So any questions on CloudFormation and OpsWork? Yeah, it's at a very high level. Configuration management as a code, as a service, whereas this is infrastructure as a service. CloudFormation is very, very important. Okay, I'll be here for 2 more minutes. If there are any questions, you can stay back, or else thank you for joining today, and we will catch up in the next session.